My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my review of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. This will be a spoiler-filled review, so if you haven't seen it, don't go watch it, just keep watching my review, but it will be an in-depth review. And just a heads up, I was planning on revisiting this show before I review it, but I don't ever plan on rewatching this show again, so my thoughts might be a little messy, but I did write notes at the time, so I'm going to be going off of them. So, yes, anyways, let's get into it. We're talking about each and every individual episode quickly first. The first episode was incredibly boring. It did not grab me in any way. The second episode, it introduces John Walker well enough, but I don't really care for the relationship between Sam and Bucky. There's a scene where they're arguing in a neighborhood, and then they're like, "Oh, Sam, we're gonna arrest you because you're black." And I thought that was a nonsensical scene. And the third episode has Zemo breaking out of prison, and I just felt like that was a very underwhelming event. Like, there should have been some sort of weight to it, but it kind of just happens, and it's never brought up again. Then they team up with Sharon Carter, and I just don't care for this character. I don't care for this whole power broker subplot. There was a 2-second scene where Zemo dances and the internet lost their mind for like a month, which is just pathetic. But yeah, this was another really bad episode. The fourth episode might actually be the best one. It's not great or anything, but it's where you start to see the potential of the show coming into play, especially with John Walker's character. The discussion he has with his friend about the serum and whether or not it makes you pure good, and if he's a good guy and all that. I thought that was interesting stuff, but with the fact that he lost his best friend and then he goes ahead and kills that one dude, that was a very intriguing way to end this one episode. Episode 5 begins really well with this good fight scene between Sam and Bucky against John Walker, and then after that it kind of just feels like they're wrapping up everything. Like, it's not the finale, but they kind of treat it like it is. I thought this was a pretty boring episode, and just some of the way that Bucky talks to Sam, I just didn't buy it. It felt very forced, it felt very contrived. It's like, oh, look to see how far these characters have come from the beginning of the show, and I just didn't buy any beat of that. And then the last episode, it's better than the WandaVision finale, I guess I'll give it that. There was some entertaining action, I guess, with Sam chasing this helicopter and the way he finds a way to bring them down. I guess that was decent, but everything else I didn't really care for. Sam has a giant speech at the end, which was just incredibly cringe-worthy and on the nose. So yeah, as you can tell, I did not like this show very much at all. I guess I'll say the performances were good. No one's bad in it. The only performances that really stood out to me, though, were Carl Lumbly, who plays Isaiah. I thought he actually gave a really great performance, and Wyatt Russell as John Walker. In fact, it kind of makes me bummed out the direction they took that character, because I feel like Wyatt Russell did such a great job playing him, and I would have liked to see him be the villain of John Walker for long. There's definitely some fascinating stuff behind him, but just the way that they end up taking his character and ends up redeeming him, I just don't think that's an interesting place. I think the entire idea that this man became what the military bred him to be like, and he gets to see the repercussions of that. You know, if he kept defending himself, like when he's talking to his friend's family and he's just like telling them a nonsense story that he knows wasn't true, that was interesting stuff. And then they build up that like, oh, he's gonna fight Sam and Bucky, he has it out for them, and then he just ends up being a good guy. You just don't buy any character beat of that when so much of the show up until that point was showing just how damaged of a man he is. So yeah, I feel like they completely mishandled that character. But I still like the ideas behind him. Sam and Bucky, I don't think are interesting characters. They are Captain America's sidekicks for good reason, and it shows here. They're not meant to carry a show. Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan are fine actors, but I don't think they're leading men, at least not yet. Their relationship, I felt, was really forced. The constant bickering, you don't really buy it. It feels really, yeah, I didn't buy the chemistry between them. By the end, I'm supposed to be like, oh, these two are best buddies now. Yeah, I didn't get that from them. The main bad guy, Carly, it's trying to bring up the point of, oh, look how badly we were treated in the last 5 years. This is wrong and all that. And I'm supposed to have some sort of emotional attachment to her and the Flag Smashers. and I just did not give a shit about them. I thought they were really generic, lame villains that I never cared for in any way, and I thought they were mishandled as well. Zemo, he's completely mishandled. It seems like he's a completely different character, so correct me if I'm wrong here, but in Captain America Civil War, wasn't the entire point of him that he was like a family man? You know, he was like an every man, and then he lost his family, and he had nothing left, so he went to get revenge against the Avengers. Wasn't that the entire point of Captain America Civil War? But now they make it like he's some kind of huge criminal underworld boss. You know, that everybody listens to him. And I never got that impression from him once in Civil War, so it doesn't feel like the same character, and also he has zero impact on the plot. He talks about the dangers of superheroes, and I wish they drew more parallels between what he was saying with John Walker. I wish they integrated those two characters in their ideologies more, but they didn't, and Zemo just ends up being useless. All the people from Black Panther coming into play really didn't have any effect on the plot. They're just there to be Easter eggs. Sharon Carter, I think, is a terribly bland character. Like I said, I didn't have any investment in this entire power broker plot, so that stuff was really boring. Julie Louis-Dreyfus, who came in for one scene and one scene alone, just... I get that Marvel likes to build things up in their universe, and I think they did a good job with it in regarding to Thanos, but now it just feels like, okay, it's just getting to that point where I'm tired of it. I don't care about who this lady is. I just don't. The action is not good in this show. It lacks any stakes, any weight behind it. I found it to be very choppily made. It's just action I had zero investment in. I wasn't impressed by it. But I think the biggest issue of this entire show is the story, because there is not one cohesive story here. It is so all over the place. It's just a mumbled mess. So, okay, we got to the story of Sam becoming the first Black Captain America. And this is actually the best storyline in the entire show. I thought the payoff with Azale Bradley's character was very emotionally strong. So this storyline seemed like an essential part of the show that had to be included. Bucky trying to right his wrongs, I feel like it gets introduced at the beginning and they try to pay it off in the last episode, but there's nothing in between that really happens to his character that makes me feel like there's any kind of character transformation. So that had no effect. They could have that element in the story, but wrap it more around of him trying to do better throughout. But I just felt like that entire thing was terribly mishandled. Then we got the injustices of the 5-year gap. This is why the Flag Smashers are doing what they're doing, and I had zero investment in this. It seems weird saying that the main villains could be written out of the show entirely and it wouldn't change that much, but if it was just generic people, generic villains being like, oh, I captured some people at the bank and I'm holding them hostage, come and get me, and that was the big finale, it would have had just as much of an impact. So yeah, I really feel like those characters were terribly mishandled. Then we got the military man who became what he was bred to become, and this is definitely the most intriguing element that wasn't fleshed out enough, didn't get a good enough payoff. So it's one element I definitely wish was still present but could have been done better. Then we got Zemo and his hatred of superheroes, which just has no effect on everything. So pretty much what this show feels like, it's like they've got an idea here, they've got an idea here, and because of that, it just feels like, okay, we're watching this storyline now. Okay, now we're watching this storyline now. Okay, now we're watching this storyline now. There's no integration, there's no cohesiveness between all the different storylines. Like, the great storylines are when the entire movie is just one giant circle. Like, if that was a Venn diagram, it's just one giant circle. And every single character arc and idea of the movie was tied around one type of plot. But here, there's like 5 different main plots that the story's focusing on, and because of that, it just doesn't feel like one story. It's just a complete mess. Okay, let's take a movie like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, for example. So Joel's character and the arc he goes on is completely tied to his relationship with Clementine's character in the arc she goes on. And then this entire story is based around those two, and then we've got all these ideas of love and regret, and the movie fully fleshes out each and every idea, and there's a B storyline which at first seems detached from that main plot, but then the ideas by the end of it make it so it all fits into this nice tight circle. It's about all these things that just come together in one. In this show, it's just all over the place. It's just everywhere. Sam Wilson being the first black Captain America has nothing to do with him breaking Zemo out. And then that has nothing to do with John Walker's character arc. And that has nothing to do with calling the Flag Smashers. It's just all these scattered plot points with no relation, and it just results in very unsatisfying storytelling. Like I said, there is some good elements to this show. You can watch it and see some potential along specific story beats. But just the way the show comes together, or should I say the way it doesn't come together, just left me completely unsatisfied. It's an incredibly bland and dull show. It lacks any sort of cohesiveness. It's all over the place. It's a mess. It's a show that I have no interest in ever revisiting. It is a very bad show, so that's why I'm going to go ahead and give The Falcon and the Winter Soldier a 3.5 out of 10. Okay, have you seen The Falcon and the Winter Soldier? What did you think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe. Stay tuned for some more videos soon, and Gavin out.